The Horror Box, the Watcher Between Worlds. Welcome back to Halfway Dark. Tonight's story is not just a story, it's a doorway. If you're listening, know this. Something is watching you. Something not bound by walls, not limited by space or time. Before we begin, hit subscribe. The Watcher notices those who ignore the rules. Stay with us, and maybe you'll survive tonight's tale. This is the Watcher Between Worlds. I noticed it first in the corner of my apartment. Or maybe it noticed me. It's hard to tell which. The corner didn't feel wrong at first. Just colder than the rest of the room. Quiet, but in a way that felt intentional. Like the air itself was holding its breath. Then came the shadows. They didn't move naturally. They stretched and twisted, almost like they were liquid. And when I looked directly at them, they recoiled, shrinking back as if I'd broken some unspoken agreement. I tried to tell myself it was stress, maybe sleep deprivation, but then came the sounds. Low murmurs that I couldn't localize, voices whispering syllables that weren't human, but somehow recognizable. They weren't saying words I understood, but I understood them. Deep inside, in some part of my brain I don't use. I felt their meaning. Don't look too long. Don't blink. Don't leave. The next night, I woke in the middle of the dark to the feeling of being moved. Not picked up, not carried, just shifted. My body had changed position in the bed, though I remembered nothing. And that's when I saw it. A shape, thin, impossibly tall, stretching from floor to ceiling. Its head tilted sideways, watching me with something. Not eyes. I think it had eyes, but not in a way that eyes should work. The longer I stared, the more the room changed. The walls bent inward. The ceiling arched unnaturally. My apartment no longer followed geometry. I blinked, and suddenly I was outside. Or maybe inside, or both. The skyline beyond my window didn't match the city I lived in. Buildings stretched and leaned in impossible directions, and the sky was a sickly green, veined with colors I couldn't name. The Watcher had moved me. Or maybe I had moved into its world. I tried to scream. No sound came out. I tried to move. My limbs obeyed, but everything around me resisted. Gravity itself felt conditional, like it could stop at any moment. Then came the voice, not in my ears, but in my mind. You've seen me. It wasn't a sentence. It was a fact, a warning. I realized then, the Watcher isn't just watching. It's aware that you're aware. Every thought you have, every hesitation, every breath you take is recorded, processed, stored somewhere beyond the limits of comprehension. And worse, it communicates. Not with words, but by shaping reality around you. That's how it tells you. Stay. Look away. Do not move. I tried to close my eyes. The Watcher shifted anyway. I felt its attention pressing into my eyelids, probing, testing. I opened my eyes, and the city outside my window had changed again. Time itself felt distorted. Hours stretched into minutes. Seconds collapsing into infinite loops. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I couldn't. Every blink, every shadow in my apartment, every reflection in a window reminded me that it was there, watching, waiting, learning. I started seeing patterns in the ceiling tiles, in the carpet, in the way the light hit the floor. A language, a geometry of dread. It wasn't human. Not even close, but it could teach me its rules, could bend me into understanding its perspective, and it wanted me to. The next night, I tried to move. I stepped toward the door. The room stretched. Hallways appeared where none existed. My floor flattened into nothingness. I fell through air that didn't exist, and then I stood in my bedroom again, somehow unharmed, somehow informed. That's when I understood the cruelest part. The Watcher isn't here to kill. It's here to train, to teach. to break down everything you think you know about your reality until you obey, until you stop thinking of yourself as separate from it. I tried leaving, tried stepping out the door, tried even walking through the walls. The Watcher was everywhere. Not everywhere like a ghost, everywhere like the rules of the universe itself. Step wrong, think wrong, blink wrong, and it shifts. Shapes reality to punish you, correct you. And yet there's a perverse logic to it. I feel comforted in a way, like I finally belong somewhere, even if it's somewhere wrong. The final realization hit me in the kitchen. The knife block, the fruit bowl, the refrigerator, they all moved subtly when I wasn't looking. Not like poltergeist activity, more like adjustments, calibrations. The Watcher shaping the world around me, making it perfect. Perfect for observation, perfect for learning, perfect for me to finally understand that I was never alone. And now I can't tell the difference between the world it made and the world I knew. Every reflection I see now hints at something watching behind me. Every corner seems slightly off, and every shadow stretches longer than it should. The Watcher isn't just in the apartment. It's in the angles, the spaces you don't pay attention to. It's in your perception. And worse, it knows when you notice. So I'm writing this, posting it here, to warn you or to invite you. Because if you're reading this, it's already noticing you too. The angles in your room, the ceiling above your head, the spaces behind your furniture, every blink, every breath. It's waiting, always waiting. And every time you think it's gone, it isn't. That was the horror box, the Watcher between worlds, here on Halfway Dark. If you felt the unease, if your walls feel just slightly different now, hit subscribe. You're not imagining it. The Watcher doesn't just watch me anymore. It watches everyone who listens. And every listener becomes part of its world. Good luck tonight. And remember, some angles are best left unseen. The horror box, the rules they left behind welcome to Halfway Dark. Tonight, we open a new horror box, one that doesn't just haunt me, it wants you to follow along. Before this story begins, hit subscribe. Once the rules start, there's no undoing them. If you listen all the way through, the horror box will know. This is the rules they left behind. I didn't want to write this, but something told me I had no choice. It started with a note, placed in my apartment where I would definitely see it. Not under my door, not taped to a mirror. It was on my kitchen table, a single sheet of paper. No signature, but the handwriting mine. The note read, "Do not look behind the door." I laughed. I wanted to believe it was a prank. But there's a difference between a prank and a warning, and this felt precise. Intentional. Alive. I tried to leave it alone. I tried to pretend it didn't exist. But every night, more appeared. Do not close your eyes while the lights are flickering. Do not open the fridge after midnight. Do not breathe too loudly in the living room. I started to notice them elsewhere too, scribbled on walls, scratched into the inside of drawers, appearing in notebooks I'd never used. And every time I ignored one, something shifted. The first time, I opened the fridge. I expected food. Instead, I found a puddle of something warm and sticky, smelling faintly metallic. A spoon hovered above it, suspended in the air for a heartbeat, then fell to the floor with a thud. I didn't touch it. I don't know how long I stared before I heard the whisper. You didn't follow the rule. No one was there. I was alone. The rules continued. And then I started noticing things in the apartment that weren't mine. Shadows that didn't match their source. Whispers that echoed my thoughts before I could think them fully. A faint tapping like fingernails on glass at exactly 3 minutes past every hour. Then came the test. I found a new note on my knitstand one morning. Say your name aloud. Do not hesitate. I did. I spoke it, my own voice trembling. The apartment responded. The air shifted, heavy. The walls bent slightly, just enough to make me dizzy. I swore I saw a figure in the corner, tall, featureless, and smiling, or at least the impression of a smile. I blinked. It was gone. And that's when I realized the rules weren't just instructions. They were tests. Every note, every warning, every little restriction was a trial. Fail, and the horror box punishes. Succeed, and it marks you as part of it. Another note appeared later that night. Do not breathe while reading this. I tried. The air in my lungs trembled, my chest tightened. But I obeyed. And when I exhaled softly, the shadows in the room shifted, forming a doorway I had never seen before. I stepped through. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I stayed. Maybe the doorway wasn't real. I can't tell anymore. The world beyond the door, the one that shouldn't exist, was an echo of my own apartment. Furniture in slightly wrong places. Doors leading nowhere. Hallways curving into themselves. And in every reflection, something stared at me that wasn't me. The figure appeared again. It had my eyes, my hands, my voice, but twisted wrong. It whispered rules I didn't fully understand. Do not look at the ceiling. Do not touch the floor. Do not question the light. Every step I took was a potential trap. Every sound I made was cataloged. Every breath measured. And then it started addressing me, and you. You're listening. You're here. Do not move your eyes from the screen. Do not pause. Follow the rules if you want to remain safe. I froze. The entity, the horror box itself, knows you are listening. It knows your habits. It's not just my apartment anymore. It's yours too. Every rule I follow, every note I read, is a guide for you. By the time I finished the next note, I realized the horror wasn't the figure. It wasn't the rules. It wasn't the shifting walls or the impossible angles. It was the obedience. Because once you obey, once you follow the rules, the horror box grows inside you. It marks you. It waits in the corners of your vision, in the shadows that don't match the light, in the quiet spaces behind your closed doors. And then the final note appeared. Do not close your eyes until the end of the story. Keep listening. Do not stop. You are part of this now. I didn't want to read it. I wanted to tear it apart, throw it in the trash, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop. And now, neither can you. Every sound in your room is a rule. Every flicker of light is a test. Every shadow a mark. And once it's inside, it never leaves. Outro. That was the horror box. The rules they left behind, here on Halfway Dark. If you felt the pull, if your own room feels wrong now, hit subscribe. It won't protect you, but it will keep you connected. The horror box isn't just a story. It's a set of rules, a presence, a test, and it's watching right now. Do not close your eyes. Do not move. And remember, it grows with every listener. The horror box, the house that grows. You're listening to Halfway Dark. Tonight's story is not just another haunted house tale. This isn't about doors slamming or shadows passing in the hallway. This is about a house that grew. And before I take you inside, make sure you hit subscribe right now, because if you don't, this story will follow you. It always does. This is the horror box. Welcome to the house that grows. Story, I first noticed it in the bathroom ceiling. A small, pulsing line that didn't look like a crack or a water stain. It looked alive. At first, I thought I was imagining things. The house was old, sure, and maybe the plaster had warped. But when I touched it with the tip of my finger, it felt soft, warm, like skin. The next day, the line had widened. Not broken plaster, not mold. It looked like a vein, branching across the ceiling, pale blue and faintly throbbing. That was when I should have left. That was when I should have burned the whole place down. But I didn't, because I couldn't shake the feeling that it wanted me to stay. The house had been cheap, too cheap, and I'd convinced myself it was luck. A forever home, my forever home. But that word doesn't mean what I thought it did. A week later, the bathroom ceiling wasn't just veined, it was layered. A membrane had formed, thin and translucent, stretching down like skin over a wound. And inside it, I swear I saw something moving. I pressed a hand to it once. It pulsed under my palm. Something on the other side pulsed back. That night, I dreamed I was inside the walls. Not behind them, but actually part of them. My arms stretched into beams. My veins ran through the plumbing. My heartbeat sensed with the hum of the house itself. And when I woke, I wasn't in bed. I was on the bathroom floor, curled up beneath the growing ceiling, my hands stained red. I don't know if the blood was mine. I tried to tell myself it was just stress, just madness. But then I saw the growth spreading, tiny filaments creeping down the hallway, the walls warping ever so slightly, bowing in and out like they were breathing. And at night, the whispers. They didn't sound like voices. They sounded like thoughts. Thoughts that weren't mine. Thoughts that wanted me to stay. Don't go, they said. You belong. You're already part of us. By then, the gore started. Just little things at first. A patch of the wall that tore open like a wound, leaking a thick, dark fluid. The kitchen floor sprouting something like teeth, brittle and sharp, waiting for bare feet. But the worst was the basement. I hadn't gone down there since moving in. The door always swollen shut. One night, though, it opened on its own. The smell hit first, coppery, sweet, nauseating. The stairs were slick. The walls pulsed. And when I finally reached the bottom, I realized I wasn't in a basement at all. I was in a stomach. The walls were lined with ridges that looked like ribs. Veins crisscrossed overhead. And at the center, in a pit of soft, fleshy floor, was something growing. It looked like me. Not fully, not formed, but close enough. A body half buried in the house itself. Veins sprouting from its arms into the floor. Its chest rose and fell. Its eyes were closed. And when I leaned closer, against every instinct I had, it whispered, "Stay." I ran. Of course I ran. But when I slammed the basement door behind me, I realized the house didn't care. Because where could I go? Everywhere I turned, the house was changing. Rooms stretching longer, ceilings bowing lower, walls folding in as if it was reshaping itself around me. And every change had one message. I wasn't supposed to leave. I thought about burning it, drenching the place in gasoline, striking a match, and walking away. But when I tried, the walls bled, the floorboards trembled like muscle, and the fire went out before it even started. You can't burn something that's alive. And it is alive. It's alive, and it's hungry, and it wants me, not as food, not as prey, but as part of it. That's when the dreams got worse. I'd wake to find myself pressed against the walls, my face against the warm plaster, my lips mouthing words I didn't understand. Sometimes I'd wake with blood in my mouth, sometimes with splinters, and sometimes with the taste of something soft, fleshy, and wet. I don't know how much of me is still mine, because last night I caught my reflection in the mirror, and the reflection didn't match me. My eyes blinked slower. My mouth stayed shut a second too long. And behind me, just for an instant, the walls leaned closer, as though they wanted to be seen. The house is spreading. Not just here, not just in my rooms. It spreads when I tell this story. When you picture the veins, when you imagine the ceiling above your head shifting just slightly, that's the infection. That's how it grows. So if you're listening to this right now, if you're imagining what it would be like to see your own walls breathing, to hear your own house whisper, then it's already inside. And you can't move out. You can't run. Because wherever you go, you'll carry it with you. You'll be its forever home. This has been Halfway Dark. You've just stepped inside the horror box, and the house doesn't want you to leave. If you're brave enough to hear more stories like this, make sure you hit subscribe right now. But be careful, because the more you listen, the more you imagine, the more it grows. And one day, you'll look around and realize your home isn't yours anymore. It's alive, and it's waiting. Welcome back to Halfway Dark. Tonight's story isn't just a story, it's a haunting. If you listen, it will follow you. Before you go any further, subscribe now. It's the only way to know you're not alone when the strange begins to notice you too. The person who waits. It started the day I moved into my new apartment. Everything was clean, bare, ordinary. Except for one thing. A chair. A single wooden chair sat in the far corner of the bedroom. The landlord swore it wasn't his. Said it must have been left by the last tenant. I almost told him to take it away, but something about the way he looked at it made me stop. He didn't meet my eyes when he left. He just muttered, "Don't sit in it." I laughed it off. People leave junk behind all the time. A chair was just a chair. Or at least, it should have been. The first night, I woke up around 3 in the morning. My room was dark, silent. But the chair wasn't empty. Someone was sitting in it. I couldn't make out details, just the outline of a figure, perfectly still, facing me. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, the chair was empty. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, just my brain playing tricks. But the next night, it happened again. And this time, when I saw the figure, I could hear it breathing. Days passed, and I tried to ignore it. I worked. I ate. I pretended nothing was wrong. But every night, the chair was occupied. And little by little, the figure wasn't staying still anymore. Its head would tilt. Its shoulders would rise and fall. Sometimes I'd hear a faint tapping, like fingernails drumming on the wood. By the end of the week, I realized something terrible. It wasn't just watching me while I slept. It was waiting. I thought about getting rid of the chair, but the thought made me nauseous, as if the idea didn't belong to me. So instead, I decided to test it. One night, before bed, I whispered into the dark, "Who are you?" The room held its breath. No movement, no sound. And then, a whisper answered back, "I am the one who waits." My blood went cold. I flicked on the light. Nothing. The chair was empty. But I knew I'd heard it. From then on, it wasn't confined to the nights. I'd catch glimpses in mirrors, shadows, reflections on dark windows. Always that same still figure, seated patiently. At work, in the corner of the break room. On the subway, faint in the glass behind me. Even once, horrifyingly, reflected in my own pupils when I looked in the bathroom mirror. Always seated, always waiting. I tried to outsmart it. I moved the chair to the living room, slept in the bedroom. That night, I woke up to find the chair had moved back. The scrape marks on the floor proved it. I left the chair in the hallway. The next morning, it was back in the corner of my bedroom, facing the bed, always facing the bed. The whispers grew bolder. Sometimes I'd wake to hear it muttering, a low droning chant too soft to make out. Sometimes louder, right by my ear. "Not yet, not yet." One night I asked again, "What are you waiting for?" The reply came instantly, close enough to feel its breath on my face. "For you to sit." I called the landlord, asked if the last tenant had complained. There was silence on the line, then a sigh. "They always see the chair," he said, "but they never stay long enough to understand." "What happened to them?" I asked. He hung up. Sleep became impossible. I drank coffee until my hands shook. I left the lights on, the TV blaring. But exhaustion always won, and every time I woke, the figure was clearer. Not just an outline anymore. I could see the folds of its clothes, dark, loose fabric that seemed to move slightly, as though stirred by a breeze I couldn't feel. I could see its hands resting on the chair's arms, long fingers curled just enough to show nails too sharp, too black, but never its face. Its face was always shadow. The final night came without warning. I woke, and for the first time, the chair was empty. Relief hit me like a drug. I almost cried, but then I heard it, the creak of wood, not from the chair, but from my own bed. Slowly terrified, I looked down. The figure was sitting at the edge of the mattress, closer than it had ever been, waiting. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember moving. All I remember is darkness swallowing me whole. And when I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my room. I was seated in the chair. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. The figure stood before me now, its face still hidden. It leaned close, and for the first time, I saw its mouth move. You waited long enough. That's where the story ends. At least, that's where mine does. Because if you ever find a chair in your room, one you didn't put there, don't sit in it. Don't even touch it. Because once you do, it's not your chair anymore. It's your turn to wait. And someone, somewhere, is already watching you from the corner of their own room. That was the person who waits. If you're still here, then maybe the chair hasn't found you yet. Subscribe to Halfway Dark for more haunting, original horror stories that stay with you long after the lights go out. And tell me in the comments, would you dare to sit? Welcome back to Halfway Dark, the place where horror bends reality. Tonight's story isn't just creepy. It's disturbing, unforgettable, and unlike anything you've heard before. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now. Trust me, you'll want to be inside before this door closes. The Skin Parade. The first time I saw the Skin Parade, I thought I was dreaming. It was just past midnight when I heard the sound. Not music, but something like fabric tearing in rhythm. I pulled my curtains back, and there they were. People. Or they used to be people. They marched down the center of my street in perfect silence, their bodies wrapped in their own peeled skin like cloaks. Faces hollow, eyes black, mouths sewn shut with thread that seemed to twitch and tighten as they walked. Some dragged their skin behind them like long, wet banners. Others wore their hides inside out, veins glowing like bright wires in the moonlight. And every single one of them looked familiar. Neighbors, co-workers, family. I swear I saw my mother in the crowd, though she died 10 years ago. She turned her head as she passed, stitches stretching, and for a moment, her lips almost broke open, like she wanted to say my name. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been sleep paralysis, a hallucination. But then I found the trail. Across the asphalt, long streaks of blood-red drag marks shimmered like snail slime. A stench of copper and burnt fabric clung to the air. And when I bent close, I realized it wasn't blood. It was skin oil. That night, I heard it again. The tearing rhythm. This time, I recorded it. But when I played it back, there was no sound. Just a black screen, pulsing faintly, like skin pressed against glass. And then a whisper, not from the phone, from behind me. Come join the parade. I spun around. Nothing there. Just the reflection of my window. But when I leaned closer, my reflection didn't move. It only smiled. By the third night, I stopped pretending this was in my head. Because they came to my house. The Skin Parade didn't just march down the street this time. They turned up my driveway. Hundreds of them. Skin trailing, mouths stitching, bodies gleaming under the blank black sky. And as they passed my window, they pressed their palms to the glass. Not once, not twice, but over and over until the surface was smeared with sweat and blood and oil. When they finally pulled away, their handprints stayed. And beneath them, words began to appear. written in the residue. Your turn. I tried to leave town the next morning. Packed a bag, locked the door, started the car. But every road looped back into itself. GPS spun like a broken compass. Gas station clerks stared at me with empty eyes, skin too tight, like they were already halfway undone. No matter how far I drove, I always ended up back in my driveway, and the stains on the window got thicker. By the fourth night, the parade slowed. And when I say slowed, I mean they waited. Dozens of skin-wrapped figures stood in the street, unmoving, heads all tilted toward my house. Not swaying, not breathing, just waiting. I covered the windows, stuffed towels under the doors. But it didn't matter. At 3:33 in the morning, my house began to hum. Not from outside, from the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster and heard them. Dozens, hundreds of voices whispering in a choir. And what they whispered made my blood turn to ice. We already have your skin. We only need you to leave it behind. Last night, I woke up and found the first stitch. Dead center of my chest. A black thread pulling my skin together where it had been sliced open. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel blood. But when I tugged at the thread, my skin started to peel back like it wasn't attached anymore. Like it had already chosen to leave me. And the moment I touched it, I saw the parade outside. Only this time, they weren't marching. They were waiting, holding out a space in their endless line, waiting for me to join. I don't know if writing this will change anything. Maybe it'll find you. Maybe you'll hear the tearing rhythm tonight too. If you do, don't look outside. Don't peel back the curtain. Don't listen to the whisper that tells you to step out into the street. Because once you see the skin parade, it sees you too. And it will keep marching until you're part of it. I can already feel the stitches crawling up my throat. And I don't think I'll be able to stop myself from smiling when I finally join the march. That was tonight's story, The Skin Parade, a disturbing, original horror tale designed to haunt you long after you hit pause. If you're new here, subscribe to Halfway Dark right now for more creepy, unsettling stories you won't find anywhere else. Drop a comment below. Would you resist the parade, or would you march? Until next time, keep your curtains closed.